and you know how to board, and you know what the market would give you, so you can actually make a fight against each other. It's exactly that. You leverage a lot of power, negotiating power. Because when you are doing a fundraising round or when you're going for an exit, all you do is negotiation. Okay, so you also want to, it gives you the power to plan your long-term exit strategy. It gives you the power to understand how to build your enterprise value, and it helps you make smarter financial and operational decisions. So I am going to put two buckets. We got the startup bucket and we got the more established businesses bucket, because valuation for these two buckets will be different. And I'm going to tell you why. So first of all, we have startups. Startups come for fundraising rounds without no revenue, no traction, really no data, to be honest with you guys. So the way valuation works here is very different than established business, where they have customer data, they have revenue, they have traction, they have cash flow. There's so much to go by that you can do a different methodology. So for valuation for startups, what do the investors look at if there's no revenue or traction or any financial performance? They evaluate the risk, the opportunity, and the momentum. Okay. So a lot of the key drivers of that are the founding team credibility is so important. The market opportunity, if you're going for a fundraising round, you already know this, the TAM, the SAM, the SUM, total addressable market, the serviceable addressable market of that. The product development stage, the customer traction or the wait list, the competitive landscape, and the intellectual property or technology. That's a few of the key drivers of startup valuation. Now, at this stage, on the startup level, there are two terms that come into play. First, we got the pre-valuation or pre-money valuation, and we got the post-valuation, post-money valuation. And you can go into www.intothenext.com/insights. And I actually put a calculation there for you guys to know how to calculate this. But the way this works is, in simple terms, if you are raising a $2 million round and you're saying your valuation pre-money is $6 million, then your post-money valuation would be 2 plus 6 equals 8. And if you want to know how much of that is given to investors, then you divide your 2 million, which is what you were fundraising, divided by your post valuation, which is 8 million. So you're basically giving away 25% of the company. So there is those metrics that you want to go to www.intothenext.com/insights, and you will get some really good information there. All right, so now let's talk the other bucket, the valuation for business owners. All right, the more established businesses that have revenue, have traction, have steady cash flow, being around for years, there's proving of they're not really in the product market fit anymore. They're actually in the growth, expansion, or maybe exit maturity stage. Okay, so why the valuation is important for this kind of owners? First of all, strategic planning. You want to know where you land in the market at all times, because that will help you make the decisions to stay ahead in the market. To maybe you thought that your valuation was going to be higher, but we realized that you are your revenue is concentrated on a few customers, so maybe you want to diversify that. Maybe you want to include new recurring revenue streams. There's so many things that can help you when you value your business. So strategic planning is one of them. When you want to sell part of your business or your shares, because you do need evaluation for any kind of those events. When you're bringing a partner or an investor as well, you want to make sure you value your business and you give transparency on what price per share you're doing it, or what are the assumptions behind it. When you're obtaining loans or lines of credit, and obviously when you're going for an exit, you're planning your state or going for a recession, right? You're basically going for an exit. So for more established businesses, evaluation is different. It's often based on the profitability, the cash flow, and the industry benchmarks rather than just the growth potential. All right, so valuation, if you're going for an exit, okay, there are a number of things that you want to answer, right, when it comes to having evaluation. What types of buyers will be interested in your business? How acquirers or private equity firms value companies? What makes your company more or less attractive to buyers? And how to increase value before going to market. so one of the things that I've been saying all along, if you go back on my videos, I will say it until I die, I guess. But one of the things that I say is you have to prepare your business according to the buyer that you want to attract. Every buyer is very different in how they want your business to look like. A strategic buyer will look very different. They would want to buy you because of your brand presence, your market share. A private equity will try to buy you because they see the potential and the money that you're leaving on the table, and they want to buy your business to make it better, which is something that I am here for, to help you. This is why I have my business, to help you guys do what a PE company does before you give it to them. But they will do that. If you give it to a management buyout or an employee stock, then that's a different as well approach for your business. So you want to make sure that at every exit side, you're looking at the buyer and how do I set my business for that buyer. All right, so there's a few standard metrics in exit valuation. We got the EBITDA, earnings before income tax depreciation and amortization, and or your sales discretionary earnings. I have to make a point on those two. I get a lot of clients that tell me, we do a business valuation and they said to me, oh, I thought my valuation was going to be higher. Well, there's a few things why your valuation is not what you were it's not what you thought it was. Okay, first of all, you're probably not an EBITDA multiple. You probably are an SDE multiple. And the reason of that being is because you may be a solo operator. Your business may rely on you a lot. You're still funneling personal expenses through your business. This business is a lot of an extension from you. So when it comes to valuing a business, we look at all these things. If your business is not playing on the EBITDA multiple, it's because your business is still very small enough, maybe under 5 million, and is still set up like a solo entrepreneur, solo business owner, and there's a lot of dependency for you, so you are actually ranging on the SDE multiple. And the SDE multiple will be lower than the EBITDA multiple. So something to keep in mind, when you're going for evaluation, you need to be very clear on these two metrics, EBITDA and seller's discretionary earnings, because that will affect a lot where you fall on your valuation multiple and what your expectation will be like. So you gotta really, be clear on those ones. Okay, the other metric is revenue multiples. Well, this one's really good for SaaS or tech businesses, because a lot of the time SaaS and tech businesses don't reach cash flow positive until later on the years. So revenue multiples is what is looked at because they're recurring revenue for their valuation. Then we have the customer concentration, recurring revenue, which I talked about, the churn rate and retention metrics, operational efficiency and scalability. There's other metrics that will look like do you depend on one supplier? What is your relationship with suppliers? The churn rate, which is in retention metrics, which is basically calculated by the NPS score as well. So there's a lot of different metrics that do affect valuation. Okay, but now let me talk about the valuation methods, because this is the part that I find a little sexy. Okay, so the valuation methods are, we got the comparative company analysis, which is the comps, which is basically looking at what similar companies were valued at in recent deals, so fundraising or M&A, and it works best when good data is available. So this one you can find on like pitch books. You can find a lot of those deals that went out publicly and see how you compare to that. So this one's really good for startups, mature businesses, or exits. The comparative company analysis can be done for a startup because you can look at what startups in that industry at that level were valued at with the fundraising. So it could be a very good way to set your valuation. There is a challenge though. The private deal data is often complex to access. That's why I'm saying sometimes you have to go to external websites like PitchBook to actually get this information and probably pay for it. We got the discounted cash flow. It is the most common one of them all. Well, to me, because it's the one that I basically grew up on. But basically what it is you project future cash flows and discounts, and then project future cash flows, and then you discount them to the value based on risk. So it's very commonly used in exit planning or when a business has strong financials. So you have to have data to really do this kind of discounted cash flow modeling. And you can also do the weighted average return on this, which I don't want to confuse you with. Then we got the earning multiples, which we talk about the EBITDA or the SDE. With this one is really used on traditional business sales, and it really depends on industry, risk, and scalability. So a business might be valued at 3 to 6x EBITDA, but for SDE, you're looking more like a 1 to 3x SDE. So you can see why the multiples ranges are very different. So if you expect to be on the 6x EBITDA, but you're still a small business, you're on the SDE side. Something to really, really, really pay attention to, because otherwise your expectations will not be met. Okay, so scorecard or Berkus method, I believe I have a video about this, but it's very subjective. It's basically assign a value to the team, product, traction, and market size, and it's basically good for pre-revenue startups. And the venture capital method, which is investor estimate your exit value in 5 to 10 years and work backward to decide how much they should invest today. So it's great for seed and Series A rounds. And the challenge is the exit assumptions are speculative. So one way that I like to do pre-revenue valuations is really start thinking about what are you going to do with Series A and Series B following rounds. So if you want to go for a seed level, a fundraising round, and you're going to be valued at 15 million, you better bet that your Series A needs to be at 30 million, my friend. So you better put those ducks in a row to make sure that you will meet a higher valuation on Series A. So that's the risk that you want to bear. And is your team aligned with that risk? Because that is a big risk for investors. If you get investors at a high valuation on a seed round with no revenue, no traction, no really proven of anything, and you are using these huge projections, forecasting that you're going to be meeting a 30 million valuation on Series A, and you don't do that, you're in for a down round. A down round basically means that instead of going for a higher valuation on the next round, you're down round to a lower valuation, making all of your investors in the first round lose money, which means you are in trouble. I don't want to scare you, but that's how the life of the startup world works. Okay, so few things. How do we increase valuation, right? Let's talk about that, because we want to increase valuation. It's not so powerful to have lots of revenue if you have a low valuation. So if you have low revenue, you have high valuation, you may be still making the same value and sales price as another business that has higher revenue, low valuation. Good for thought on that one. Okay, so for startups, you want to show traction with users or revenue. You want to reduce your burn rate and improve unit economics. You want to build a strong and complementary leadership team. You want to protect your IP. You want to nail your pitch and financial projections, right? Obviously. For growing businesses, you want to diversify revenue streams, improve operational efficiency, reduce consumer concentration, document your SOPs and key business processes, and invest in branding and customer experience. Now, if you're getting ready to exit your business, you want to make sure that you're ready 2 to 3 years in advance. You want to make sure your financial and your legal documents are in order. You also want to make sure you're locking key contracts and team members. You resolve liabilities in depth and highlight recurrent revenue and long-term growth. All right. So I'm going to leave you with a summary of everything. While most founders hear about pre-money and post-money valuation during fundraising, they're also mattering M&A transactions. So if you're selling a portion of your company to a private equity partner or planning a recapitalization, your pre-valuation reflects the business before the new capital or ownership change, and your post-valuation reflects the total business value after the deal closes, including new capital, earnouts, or retained equity. So you need to be very, very clear on all of the terms that I discussed with you during negotiations, because remember, once you start an event, to trigger an event, meaning fundraising or an exit, all you do is negotiate. So Till next time, I will see you and we'll talk about another article then. And bye.